I'd like to reconvene this committee meeting. This time is for the roundtable meeting to hear a presentation of solutions from the site visitation of the Talofofo and Ugum Rivers held on December 9th, 2015, and to examine the soil erosion concerns and the attendant environmental and economic impacts. And, I'd like to invite all those who are going to participate in this roundtable meeting to please come forward and take a seat. There are plenty of chairs available. Are we? Bart Lawrence is here, and Mr. Kloppenberg, you want to join us? Okay, Tom. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we're here this morning at this long-anticipated roundtable discussion, which is a follow-up to the site visit we had in December of last year, where this issue was brought to our attention by Miss Angie Mendiola, who is currently off island at this time, but she brought this matter to our attention in cooperation with the Southern Soil and Water Conservation Program in conjunction with the Department of Agriculture's Forestry Division, and the director and the division head is here, and more specifically in cooperation with the owners of that private property. Mr. Kloppenberg, he's here, and also Dave Tedinko. It was a very significant site visit in that we were accompanied by every single local and federal partner that's responsible and committed to finding some kind of reasonable, cost-effective solution to this erosion problem. And at that site visit, I was very encouraged by comments made by Mr. Bart Lawrence from USDA, who certainly outlined that this plan or this problem just didn't occur overnight, and it was decades of erosion brought on by many other factors, and we get to talk about those things this morning. But more excitedly, we get to talk about some kind of solution that's well within arm's reach, and I'm also grateful to get the support of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and Mr. Will Castro was also there at that site visit, and he's being represented by his team. But for purposes of the public being able to follow our conversation, let me give each of you an opportunity to recognize yourself, and maybe I'll invite anybody who would wish to make an opening statement. Then after that, we'll proceed to the PowerPoint presentation that we're going to have. So,
Bart Lawrence, Assistant Director for USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Joe Moftas, Division Chief, Forestry and Soil Resources Division out of the Department of Agriculture.
Matthew Sablon, Director of Department of Agriculture. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity. It is a big negative impact on the environment with all the erosion.
Okay, Director, thank you.
Good morning. Sorry. Anyway, my name is Margaret Aguilar. I'm with Guam EPA. I'm a program coordinator for our non-point source program and active partner with forestry and NRCS for the restoration of Guam.
Thank you.
Hi, Senator.
We'll wait. Can you make sure that light is on the mic?
I'll turn it off.
It's okay, it's okay.
We'll wait. Okay, I'm Thomas Kloppenberg.
Is the light on? Is the light on?
There,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
there we go. I'm Thomas Kloppenberg. I'm the General Manager of the Jungle River Tour. I've been running it for the last 7 years. I'm also a private landowner down there. That the Ugum River is affecting our property badly, and that's why I'm here.
Buenas Hafa Day, Senator. My name is Edwin Regis from the Guam Coastal Management Program. As you know, the Coastal Management Act, it provides the basis for protecting, restoring, preserving, and responsibly developing our coastal zone, in which Guam's entire island is designated a coastal zone. So the uses of our resources and protection of those resources fall under the concern of our office, and we realize that through the implementation of the local program, which is the division that I represent.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll proceed with the presentation, but I want to be sure that I thank the owners of the Talofofo River Cruise for accommodating all of us that day. We had 9 senators and their representatives. We had the mayor of Inarajan represented there as well. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 various stakeholders and members of the media that was there. So there is quite a bit of both public and private sector interest, and to want to try to figure out the best way to mitigate the continued erosion of that area. And also during that area, we're able to see that a portion of your property, almost quarter to 1/4 of an acre, was been eroded, and you could tell all those significant damages. And Director, I'm glad you pointed out that not only is it an environmental impact, but also an economic impact, because this is a direct impact to our environment and our water resources. And so you certainly got the attention of all of us, and we're hoping that this presentation will provide some kind of blueprint and roadmap as to how we should proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, I got Mr. Joseph Mafnas here, Chief of the Division of Forestry and Soils, to do a presentation. And basically, he's going to present basically, I think, three of the causes of the erosion.
Okay, Senator. Again, it's just really, again, collaboration between the partners, right? So myself and Mr. Lawrence, and even Margaret from EPA, if she wants to chime in, if they want to chime in during this whole process. But before we move forward, Senator, can we just also acknowledge representative from the Northern Conservation District?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. My name is Erica Pangilinan. I am the Conservation Associate at the Northern Guam Soil and Water Conservation District.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, anyways, as you know, like you were saying earlier, we did that site visit. Was really, I had a lot of fun. I don't get to go up there too often, but every chance I get, I'll take advantage of that. So thank you very much to the Kloppenberg. Again, the problem, we're just going to, in this presentation, we're just going to show, the issues and the problems and, potential solutions. Again, what we're presenting here, is the mic on? I guess what we're going to be presenting here is really not the all-encompassing solution to the problems, because we do recognize that this is a long-standing issue, and it's going to require, it's at a point where it's going to require other solutions. But from the natural resource perspective, we think that this is probably, as you mentioned, the most cost-effective way to address some of the issues that they're facing up there. So again, we just want to demonstrate. We've been doing this thing since, 2011, Bart? That's correct. I think 2011 we started this effort to address the issue. We did a site visit up at the Bolanos Atakti area. This is in the head of the Ugum watershed area. And as you can see up there in this slide, these are the partners with Guam EPA, Northern and Southern Conservation District. We've got the Bureau of Stats and Plans, and then the students that you see there, these are the service learning students from Simon Sanchez. So we are trying to get the community involved, trying to get the youth involved to recognize the issues that we're facing out there, because these eventually, as we all say, these are the future leaders of the island, and hopefully they gravitate to the natural resource work that we do, and they take on this work as we go off into the sunset in our careers, right? So that's what we're show here. Sorry. So the current situation, as we all, all the folks that did participate in that field trip, that's what you got right there. As you can see, you've got the stream bank erosion there, very devastating to the landowners. Tom, I guess, was it 5-10 feet that has since eroded?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, so the private landowners, they're losing a lot of the land down there. So how do we address this this situation here? And we need to do something. We really need to start doing something immediately, because if we don't, this thing is going to continue on until something gives. So here, maybe Bart can touch on a little bit of this, the topography here in this slide, what we're looking at here.
Joe had mentioned at the beginning we initiated this project activity in partnership with Guam EPA and Division of Forestry and Soil Resources and the Southern Soil and Water Conservation District. What you see here is a slide representing sort of our combined planning and vision statement to address soil erosion and badlands in the upper end of the Ugum watershed. So this is also coincidentally the Bolanos Conservation Reserve, about 255 acres, already designated as conservation. It's mixed grassland, degraded scarps, and eroding with some native ravine forests. And you can see the green arrows point to priority areas that we recommend for treatment. So we're working in partnership with Guam Forestry as the lead agency to address and provide the science, both from a soils perspective and a vegetative perspective, and how to treat these areas, to recover them so that they become less active in terms of their erosion and revegetated. So there are a number of techniques that we're proposing for these sites. As you can imagine, it's quite difficult to get to. We got to walk up in about 2 hours, carrying all our gear and those kinds of things. So it's not an easy site to get to. But it is the top of the watershed, and that's where we want to focus a lot of our initial treatments, because we reduce the energy from rainwater and stormwater as it collects and moves down through the landscape. We're going to be able to affect better solutions at the Kloppenberg's site, because when we reduce the energy in that ecosystem, then we're better able to provide lower cost assistance in addressing the stream bank erosion.
So again, from the untrained eye, when you're going down this landscape, right, and you see all the grass, for folks, when they look at that, they think that that's it. It would do its job as far as holding back the rainwater and things like that. But with the grass there, that it still contributes to that energy, that water energy that Bart is alluding to. So yes, the priority areas are those exposed lands. However, we want to expand our force outside of that footprint as well. So.
And the swordgrass and the other native or adaptive grasses that are there are primarily bunch grasses. So they leave a lot of bare soil exposed. And when we see the fires that we've seen, such as in Fena and other areas, just this year, we're exposing large bare areas to sunlight. And then the soil gets baked, it becomes finer and breaks away from the surface. And then when we get a light rain, then all that soil then washes immediately into streams and rivers and then out into Talofofo Bay or other bays. So it's a difficult situation to work in, but we're headed in the right direction.
All right, so here we're going to present three problems here. Obviously, the Pharaoh swine, as we know, they go out there and they look for food. They disturb the soil and they expose the soil, just like what Bart was saying. So this is one of the problems, and there are ongoing efforts, with the BSP as far as the pig hunting derby. to try and help in this process and trying to address this issue. So that's one solution that's already ongoing, and we will continue on that work as we move forward. Unauthorized, unregulated off-road activities. This is right down in the Cross Island Road. This is our conservation area. As you can see, folks in this demographic, they go out there and they use this landscape, not knowing or not fully understanding or appreciate the impacts of their activities. Again, no judgment on anybody here. It is what it is, but again, it's a matter of bringing them in, educating them, making them understand the impacts of their activities, so they can be a part of the solution, as opposed to alienating them and saying that you are a problem.
But has that company been given notice that they may be in violation of being in operation because they don't have the proper permits?
Well, to my knowledge, I don't think there are any laws that prohibits off-roading activities. However, like you're saying, they did not get permission from us. I did approach the operators, or at least one of the staff of the operators, that if it's in private land, we have no business. But when you're crossing into the government properties, especially the conservation areas, you need to get our clearance, and that is not the case. So,
that's private land.
No, this is government land.
That's why I asked the question. If that's government land, then somebody has to give permission for that activity to be done in government land.
Yeah.
Don't you currently have the authority to shut that operation down?
Yep, and I did inform the staff that I will be informing our conservation officers to start enforcing their activities, and to cease and desist their activities. And we're not there 24 hours, or during the time that they're out there. We don't know what their schedules are. And,
I know, but if you're doing these things verbally, it's not going to be resolved. You have to write them a letter. You have to use the very little conservation officers you have to enforce your authority to say that they're not to be operating within that government land without the proper permit.
Okay.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
If the issue is just enforcement, then there's nothing the legislature can do.
Sure.
Other than let you enforce what you're supposed to do. If that's private land, then that's private land. But you've acknowledged that that's government land, and that's an ATV there that's not supposed to be operating government land without the proper permit.
Yeah, that is correct, Mr. Chair. In fact, there's some instances where conservation officers did come across these off-roaders, and they did warn them.
I mean, if you want to look into increasing the penalties and revoking their license for about a year, if they're non-compliant, then I'm certainly open to doing that. I want to say that enough is enough. And you can't just keep verbally telling these people they can't be doing this. We have to encourage you to use your enforcement arm and provide a documented paper trail where you're not just telling them, and it's not you against them saying, no, we were never advised. And you're right. I appreciate you saying that it's kind of an education process in the beginning. Maybe they don't know.
Yeah.
And we don't want to shut businesses down immediately, but if they've been told and they still continue to operate in that fashion, then I think something needs to be done, because the result of not enforcing those kinds of activities means that you have private property owners like the Kloppenbergs that are losing their property significantly. They're complying, but yet they're losing their property through erosion, and they're not complying, yet their business continues because they... Okay, proceed.
Yeah. Thank you. And those are very good points, and we need to do a better job. You're absolutely right. So, anyways, and I think, in my opinion, I think this is probably the biggest contributor to the issue here is Wildland Fires. This is down across Cross Island Road. This fire just happened about a week and a half ago. Yeah. I'm estimating anywhere between 500 to 600 acres that went through this landscape here. And as you can see, obviously the terrain, and like Bart was saying, these are bunching grass. As you can see in the bottom there, you see how there's a lot of exposed soil there. Even though it looks like it's full, when it's all green and lush, it looks full, but that really is not conducive to holding back the soil. So even if you got all that greenery there, you're still going to have some degree of erosion happening there. And then, as a result of all those issues, this is what happened. This is what we're talking about as far as that energy flow, that water energy flow coming down from the top of the hill. If the folks that do not recognize this area, this is just outside of the governor's house, heading south. on that left side there, on that hillside there, that was just several years ago. That was a real narrow stream, and throughout the years of all this, what's been going on with the rain, it has come to that, and so this is what's happening out there, and this is one of the reasons why you're seeing the erosion of the stream banks down at the in the Ugum area, and where the business is happening. So. And this is where it ends up. This is Talofofo Bay. I grew up in Talofofo all my life, and I remember when I was younger, the sediment would just stop right there underneath the bridge, and maybe that was as a result of the current and things like that, just holding the sediment from going outside. But it has gotten so bad that this thing is even well past the mouth of the bay, and it's even bleeding into the other beach where they call First Beach. So you can see the sediment all the way out there. That's how bad this thing is. So the differentiation in the color there, you can that's where a lot of the soils are. That's the concentration of the soils, and then the lighter shade, that's where it's like I guess, if you will, dust. That's just the floating. So the sediment it's working its way out there. So you can imagine how bad it really is there. So. And again, next steps, we're looking at developing a 5 to 10 year plan. Identifying and promoting our partners, reach out to the landowners, trying to get their buy-in as far as the work that we're trying to do. Obviously, we'll prioritize the government properties, the government agencies. If the military has land ownership, we need to work with them, get them to buy into this, and work with other government agencies. I know Parks and Rec is one of them. We need to bring them in. We need to bring the SHPO in, get their clearance. So we understand what that process is. So we need to bring all those partners in, and just identifying what resources that they have and what resources we have, so we can come together and make this thing happen. We need to look at this thing really as a community project, not necessarily a reforestation or forest Guam forestry centric project or proposal. We need to have community buy-in, because ultimately this thing affects everybody. We shut down the Ugum treatment plant during the rainy season, and we don't know what the economic impact that's happening right now. So we really need to, from the government agencies to nonprofit organizations to private businesses, every demographic that's out there that utilizes this resource, we need to bring them to the table and have them invest into this project, because it's a long-term thing, and it's going to impact a larger demographic. So.
How do you propose we put this working group together to identify and promote the partnerships, to provide for the outreach process to landowners, and to develop a 5 to 10 year plan? Do you suggest that we fund a study, or we fund putting this master plan together, or that we institutionalize this group through legislation to identify the partners and provide these measurable goals? Is this something that we can do through the legislature, or do you think this is something that just can be done?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I believe the latter part of that would be, in fact, I wanted to bring that up to you for a future conversation.
Well, especially if the plan is going to be a 5 to 10 year, it's gonna go beyond the life of any administration, right? And so you want to institutionalize any effort so that those employees that are going to remain in that permanent position are going to have a mandate, and so things aren't going to change when the leadership changes. Now we have the support of Governor Calvo and the administration to do what you're doing. Otherwise, you won't make these suggestions. But what happens when the hat changes?
As you mentioned in your opening remarks, this is a problem that has been around for eons, literally thousands of years. So the solution may be ambitious but we're optimistic people. 5 years or 10 years. USDA with US EPA or Guam EPA, I guess it's 319 program funding, and completed a watershed, an EIS and a full watershed assessment for the Ugum watershed in 1995. There's been other and this is just background information, but the question was, what's the next step in terms of revisiting that? Might be an opportunity to bring folks together around the table and see whether or not we need to do a new EA to address the mitigation throughout the entire watershed.
Who funded that EA? Was it USDA?
That was US EPA.
US EPA.
Well, through Guam EPA.
Is there any funding opportunities to update that?
There may be. We have to take a look at the 319 monies or other available Guam EPA funding. I have to go back and take a look at that. But what's very significant about this particular watershed is 70% of it is privately owned. So we really do have to get the involvement of the landowners, because many of them have properties that are right along the riverside. So there are many issues that they need to be aware of in order to help with conservation work, and to also, it'll enhance the value of their property. And what's really great about it is really there's not much development in the watershed. So it provides a very good way for us to help manage, any real significant development in there that we see happening in, all in the metropolitan areas of Guam already. So something we can have a handle on to help reduce the amount of erosion and that type of issue that's going on.
Hey, Margaret, thank you for the point you made that 70% of that area is private property landowners. So I think we might have to do some legislation to mandate their participation in this effort. Otherwise, it's
more recently, NRCS completed what we call a rapid watershed assessment for the Ugum watershed. That was completed I believe in 2008 or 2010, and that report is available on our website, and we'll make copies available to EPA and Guam Forestry and your office as well. I can't speak to mandating or requiring, or won't speak to it.
Because it will be a local
correct,
policy,
but
right? So
USDA and Natural Resources Conservation Service works in a voluntary relationship with private landowners to deliver farm bill conservation programs, and a lot of them have a mission focus to address the same resource concerns that are present on those
But there
lands.
wouldn't be any adverse impact to the private property owner if they participate in this mitigation
None.
program.
Their
At the
advantage.
very least, it's to their advantage, as Margaret pointed
Correct.
out, that it's the goal is to prevent further erosion of the...
So we have the staff available to assist with that through the Guam Field Office.
But the problem is if that EA or that plan identifies all the surrounding properties that have to participate in this mitigation plan, like forest reforestation or things like that, you can't just skip some properties. If the owner says, I don't want to participate, it's not going to make the overall plan. Edwin?
Sure. So, since we're giving ideas on probably things that can materialize into legislation, perhaps looking at it in terms of like a zoning function. So I don't have the zone map in front of me, but I'm assuming a lot of this properties is zone agriculture. And so we have a natural resource policy that mandates the protection of critical agricultural lands. What we're somewhat struggling with is defining what is a critical agricultural land. And so perhaps if there's enough information to define that legislatively, so that way it can give us certain authorities to use the land zoning process much more efficiently, that could be an opportunity.
And if those properties were designated under that definition, then there'll be extra permitting requirements, and so that if they're going to expand on their property, they would have to get these necessary clearances so that they don't do anything to promote mitigation, but just the opposite, to stop it or reverse it.
I think I just got a couple more slides, Senator, and then
I'm very
we'll just-
encouraged by what you're presenting so far. Thank you.
So again, with the reforestation effort, as you can see, these are the acacia trees. They're selected because they're really quick growing, they're tolerant to fires, or they're resilient to fires. So on the left side there, again, that was the fire that just went through down across Santa Road. You can see there are some of the trees that actually burned, but there's still some that are remaining and are thriving. And on the right side there, that's where our project area. As you can see, there was a fire that came up through there. You've got a road there that created a fire break, but at the same time, the opportunity for the fire to encroach into that landscape where all those trees are would be suppressed because of that landscape there. You know, again, underneath that the acacia trees, if you walk in there, Bart's term, you know, there's a lot of sponge, organic material, and even during the dry season, because of the shade and the moisture, the retention of the moisture there, it is still there's still moisture underneath that area there. So, and again, it does contribute and it does offset some of that stormwater energy that flows out, because it, you know, the trees captures the rainwater and it absorbs some of the rainwater there.
So this is an ancient landscape, anywhere from 25 to 35 million years old. So the soils that we have there lost its forest cover as a result of fire, which was brought by the ancient Chamorros to manage the landscape, and then made worse over modern history through cattle grazing and just burning for creating habitat so people could hunt deer and things like that. We need to bring back the trees. Acacias are a proven technology that work. They're accepted by the U.S. Forest Service. And as we do that, I just want to make clear that this isn't the terminal landscape or the climax plant community that we want to see established here. In conjunction with EPA and NOAA and other agencies, we're looking at the right mixes of native forest plants and how to apply those plants either as seedlings or direct seeded, so that underneath this we bring back native forest. And that's the ultimate goal for this. It's not a mono crop or a monostand of Acacia reguliformis or mangium, but a native forest with the nonac, the joga, and the pandanus, and
Are
all
those
those other
seedlings
species.
available?
Yes, I mean,
Like,
what we do is every year we have a process. So right now we do collect seeds during the dry season, and then we clean them out, and then we sow the seeds, and then come July, come during the rainy season, they should be ready to outplant. Again, it's a lot of our work are project driven, so we get partners if they request for like 5,000 seedlings, we propagate the seedlings for them, and then they outplant the seedlings. But we also have our project areas that we allocate these seedlings for, and the next slide will
was this
show
the same
that.
that was used for the Sedibay?
Yes. And if you drive down there, you see the landscape. There's actually the conversion of the grasslands to the acacia seedlings. So they're really coming up now. This thing here, from 18-inch seedling, in about 3 years, it'll get to about 10 to 15 feet tall. So it grows pretty quickly.
And so within about 3 years, it starts to do its job.
Well, not it's fully functioning, because what you want to achieve here, you want to achieve that canopy cover.
Yeah, for the.
And so it still takes a little bit
No, but in
a little
terms
bit longer.
of keep bringing the soil more compact so it doesn't erode.
Well, it's starting the process there, and it's also the seeds will
It's actually, Senator, reducing the compaction,
Yeah,
because
the-
we're adding the organic matter in the sponge and making, putting that organic matter in there so that the water
Oh, so the
runs into the
energy,
soil
yeah.
instead of running off the soil.
Okay.
So, a small point, but an important
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And after 3 to 5 years, yes, we can get canopy closure. Once we get canopy closure, then we reduce the incidence of rainfall striking bare soil, because we got a litter layer and we have a tree canopy. So that's the first step. So that's
So
kind
if
of
that were to be done in private property, how much private property would you take up in order to provide that solution?
the beauty of this plan is you could do that if you had a 100-acre slice and it was eroding or fire prone. You could do the entire 100 acres. Then you could make a decision if you're going to, for building or other development, figure out where you wanted to site that. Just cut the trees down, because they're there just to hold the soil and address the surface water problem. So they're not like native forest where you'd be worried about removing that resource. So
How would you feel as a private property owner if you were required to plant trees on your property?
Oh,
Tom, just speaking.
already doing it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, I've in some of the conversations I've had with agriculture and stuff, they've even given us that type of grass that grows the roots that holds the embankment together, and it's actually a picture of it's in here somewhere. The grass they gave us, it's right here. This picture right here. This clump right in here is a special grass that Department of Agriculture gave us, which we're going along and we're planting along the embankment now. And it grows a root system that goes down 12 or 15 feet and spreads out about 100 feet. And it keeps the soil all intact. And if I know that planting plants are very important, but I was told that you got to watch out which ones you plant right next to the embankment too. That sometimes bamboo and coconut tree isn't really good right next to the embankment, because when the winds blow really hard, the trees have a tendency to go with the wind, so the roots start, waters around and works them out. Yeah. But I don't know a lot about forestry, but I have heard a lot that putting trees in protects the watershed. And as a property owner there, of course, we do that. And I could almost speak for the Florists, my neighbors. They're not here now, but they have the property going further up the Ugum than us, Scott Flores' family. And I'm sure they'd be more than willing to also.
Well, we do have our forest stewardship program, which provides seedlings. Again, it's just a matter of the private landowners signing up for that program, and then again, it's working with the landowners, what their landowner objectives are, and we work with that. So we don't force the issue on them. We make our recommendation, and if it fits their objectives, then we go with that, and then that's what we provide. And get the seedlings are provided free of charge, as long as they sign up with our forest stewardship program, because we do report that up to our funders as far as part of our accomplishments. So the more participation we have, the more support the intention there is to get more support from the Forest Service. So yes, we want to try and encourage our private land owners, and we're saying, hey, we're here, you take advantage of our programs so we can grow this thing even more, so we can really impact the not only this watershed but watersheds throughout the So let me just go, I think there's one more slide here. What Bart was saying, rebuilding organic matter, plant grass, plant trees, and restore native forests. And again, that's part of the whole process there. Bart, do you want to say something?
And this was again an NRCS project supporting Guam forestry, putting mulch mats down on the Ugum. This is around the area of Talofofo Falls Park.
And I think this is the final slide. This is right. This is the final slide. So let me just play this. This is a short video, Senator, if you don't mind. This is down at the Manel Gayos watershed. This is down in Mauricio. Earlier last year, this landscape burned, maybe about 500 acres. Right below the hills here are residents, and one of the residents, they had to evacuate their house because one of their kids had asthma and all the smoke. So part of that process, we came back in October. This was part of our Arbor Day celebration just this past year, and as you can see, our forestry guys, these are the LTAs that we hired. And as you can see, they did all the site prep. They went in there with their bush cutters and did the site prep. They cut the rows, and then they followed on with herbicide application just to kill the weeds after the bush cutting. That's part of the process. And then we got the service learning folks to come in and help along with other partners, EPA districts, the Northern and Southern District. And as a result, you can see. In 2 weekends, we planted 5 acres. So,
that's great.
Yeah, it's not impossible. It's doable. Even considering the terrain and topography that the challenges that we face with the right amount of volunteers and people with the same mindset and enough motivation, we can make it happen. So that this is not something that is impossible. I like to brag, and I'm sorry, but forestry, we do this in our sleep. We do 5 acres in our sleep. So if we can just do that incrementally at 5 acres at a time, we can really make a significant impact in that watershed there, sir.
Director?
Yes, Senator, and again, I want to acknowledge, because that bill you sponsored, 176, we did do the continuity of retaining 7 LTAs for forestry, because even before that, we were down to probably just 4 or 5. So as you can see, the areas of responsibility here that we have to manage. So right now, Joe, we have like total of...
Well, in our state action plan that we developed in 2010, we identified about 80,000 acres throughout the island that needs to be addressed. So, again, it's really about bringing partners in together and just working together and trying to make everything happen.
Well, in addition to those students who are wanting to earn the service learning credit, there's also those that need community service. So those different sectors can be tapped. The students, even the Department of Correction inmates that need community service, and those that are on probation through the judiciary, they have that program as well. So if you're...
We had a couple guys in the probation program that, they actually came in and... Boy, I tell you, that's an on-tap resource right there, and the guy worked out really well. And I guess it's just putting them in the right situation, and they can thrive in that situation. And quite honestly, I wanted to hire the guy, but it just didn't work out. But that's one success that we can look at and build upon, because if DOC is an on-tap resource, and we want to just get them back into the community and things like that, so they can contribute. I think that would be a good thing.
But for the area that we're talking about, the Talofofo and Ugum River area, have you estimated how many acres need to be with the reforestry solution? How many acres would have to be covered?
I think in the very first slide there, on this one here, you're looking at 2,551 acres, 2,551 acres in the Bolanos conservation area. And again, in the whole planning process, again, we'll refine that number, and we'll really zone into that more accurate number there. But we do have some studies, like I said, our state action plan. We have identified the acreages there, and I don't have the number with me now, but there are significant numbers, and it's not necessarily the acreages that I'm really concerned about. It's really about the terrain and topography there. That would be more of the challenge than anything else.
Our group, when we first got together in 2011, prioritized the government lands at the upper end of the watershed, because that was where the critical treatment needed, because we're going to get more benefit from that application of technical assistance or financial assistance through Guam forestry programs. The Ugum watershed, or both the rapid watershed assessment and the Ugum EIS, identify the number of acres that would need to be updated with the more current information that EPA collected on private land ownership. I believe the number went from 39 to 65 new owners within the Ugum watershed. So we see a change in land use, more interest being divided and split out.
So you have all those lot numbers?
We work very closely with the Department of Land Management at the time to identify...
Can you speak into the mic, because people are following?
Yeah. We did collaborate with the Department of Land Management at the time, because when NRCS did the rapid watershed assessment, they identified landowners, and even through WERI they did a study, and it was like 35 landowners. But since that time, I guess the lands have been subdivided, so it's up to like 65 or 69. So we don't see what the plans are for the development, but you can see there's growing numbers of landowners now in that watershed. And even more important for Guam EPA, the work in this watershed and the Talofofo watershed, that's drinking water resource, so that's very important to us.
So we were to put all of this in a bill and have a public hearing. There's a mechanism to contact these 65 families to Because we're thinking that that maybe they have to be mandated to participate, but if you're a private landowner that's going to lose your property through erosion over the course of a few decades down the road, it'd be just the opposite. They would be banging on our doors to say, "I want in, I want in." I think that's more the case, right? If
Yeah, those land records exist in the addresses, and we have the summary that was collected by EPA in 2012.
There are some of the landowners that really don't live here. You know,
Yeah.
they're off island, but they may have
An
someone
administrator,
assigned
yeah.
to.
Has any efforts been made to contact these landowners and?
We had a stakeholder meeting at
Okay.
the onset, and there were
Well-
actually the landowners. There's one set of landowners that are participating, and they've opened their property for us to do some conservation work and see. In fact, that's where the students were working.
So in your past experiences, the responses of these landowners have been very favorable. Like
Actually,
just
it was.
like nobody had to be compelled or forced to participate in any conservation
it's-
program. I just want to know what the landscape is.
The
Pun
current landowner
intended.
that we're working with has been very cooperative.
Okay.
And then I'm sorry, Bart. go ahead.
But the reason our focus has been on the government lands is because we know where to go for that and to provide that and develop those partnerships. So we need to show the private landowners what it is that we're doing on government land, because I think we need to be. And the USDA doesn't own land on Guam, but so I'll speak with my former Guam forestry hat on. We need to be responsible stewards of that land and show how we can do this, and that's what we're engaged in here, because I think that's going to be a stronger lever for the private landowners than any other mechanism. We need to show them what the potential is. Here, this works. This is why it's important, and this is how you can benefit from it.
Thank you. Does EPA have any plans to formally notifying these 65 or so landowners to advise them of what the current problem is, share the report with them, and identify the opportunity to come together to have them participate in this conservation program?
We can work with Mayor Vinarahan. She's interested in helping us with that. In fact, she's a very strong advocate and supporter of our program. But it's our first stakeholder meeting. We really wanted just to get a hold and find out where we wanted to prioritize. But that's another action step that we can move on for outreach and implementation of.
I mean, I'm wondering if it's possible to create some kind of program now, maybe through Bureau Planning, to help EPA reach out to these all these families, maybe even the Southern Conservation Program. And
Sure, yeah, we'd be happy to help.
did you know that a plan exists that identifies those landowners?
Right. So the governor launched the land use mobile app, which has all the different parcel informations for Guam, and so in that it outlines the acreage and the parcel information in this watershed. What it doesn't give is the ownership, and that's because there's some permissions that we want to be able to control.
Right.
And so that's a platform that we're already using. What we have planned for the future is to incorporate land cover data over those parcel information. So this is using NOAA's Coastal Change Analysis program, and also hazards layers that we also get from NOAA. So that way, folks who want to view their parcel, they can look at all the different kind of characteristics of that they're going to have to deal with by living in that area. And so we can, as those updates become available, we're certainly happy to share that with our partners, so that way it can be used as a planning tool.
Henry, just state your name for the record.
I'm Henry Simpson. I'm a landowner in Santa Rita, and I've been working with the fellows at Agriculture, and it's worked out really well for us. I'm a motorcycle rider and off-roader and like to go through these areas, and we first became aware of it maybe about 25, 30 years ago when they started planning the coastal forestry area, which was really kind of badlands. We used to ride in there a lot. It was all red dirt and trails and things like that. And when they planted it, they left roads so you could still go through, but you could really see how well the trees did in the property, and it was really surprising because it was such bad dirt. And even then, though, I didn't understand the plan. It had a very far-reaching plan, which was basically to put non-native species in there to protect and to enrich the ground, and then at a time 20 years down the road, put native species back into that property. And so, as I became aware of it, I wanted to participate in it. We planted about 5,000 trees on our property, and are planning on planting hopefully another 5,000 trees in our next couple of years. But we just had a really bad fire in our area. And over the years, we've had lots and lots of bad fires. And I think that 90% of our erosion problems are caused by these fires. And what happens is that when you get a really, really bad fire out there, the guys come out and they work really hard on trying to stop it, but they can only get around the edges of it where you've got access to it. And later on, they'll call in, the Navy will bring helicopters with Bambi buckets, but usually they only come when they need to protect a house, where people's properties are involved. So they've dropped around my house, they've dropped around our neighbor houses so that it would stop the fires from coming, upwind to where we live. And it works really good. Now, I was told there was a chance that forestry could get access to 2 helicopters that are designed to handle water drops, and that they could be given to forestry at no cost, but they would need to be maintained, and that the maintenance of these, if you could have these helicopters available, where their main mission would be not to just protect houses, but to stop the fire before it starts. So as soon as you see smoke, you send a helicopter out there and you stop the fire. That could have been done the other day, and it would have saved up, 800 acres or whatever has been burned. So being able to do a preemptive strike on some of these, I think would really do it. The guys can't get out there and stop those things. Once they're started, they have a life of their own. But the minute you see smoke, and you could have a group of people that could report that, or you could have a ranger station or something that says, hey, there's smoke in this area, send a helicopter out, stop it before it starts, and you would pretty much eradicate this, I think, over a time period. Because the other part, we would get blamed for being part of the erosion problem, being off-roaders, going out and going on the trails. But I consider that to be such a small part of what the actual damage is, that I would say maybe that kind of thing contributes 5% to the overall siltation of the rivers, where fires are 90 to 95% of it. And if you could stop that, you would solve these kind of problems in the future. So I think they have an opportunity to do that, and would need the support to do that. And now that the National Guard, or one of the groups, National Air National Guard, has 2 helicopters, has people that are being trained as pilots, has mechanics. If they were supported to do the maintenance on these helicopters, and these helicopters were available at no cost, it would just be a no-brainer to do that right away. You would save thousands of acres from fires.
And just to Mr. Simpson's point on those helicopters, that's to our thorough access personal property program, and it's the same program that we loan fire trucks to the Guam Fire Department. Guam Fire has about 8 or 9 of our forestry trucks, supporting their fleet. So same program. I spoke with the Montana State Forester, and he brought this to my attention, that the California Forestry they are going to turn in about 5 or 6 of their helicopters that they use, that's designed specifically for water drops. And again, that's one of the things that we can explore. Again, we have to discuss more details as far as how to get the thing over here. But through that program, if they turn it into that program, we can get it, and it's free of charge, just like the LESO program. Whatever assets are turned into this, the agencies that screen it, they get it for free, no charge. But in this case, if it's coming from California, whoever is going to screen for that, they need to take on the cost of that shipping. So it's an opportunity, and then obviously the maintenance of these assets. I know the Guam Army Guard, they have a helicopter squadron that's just recently stood up, so it makes sense. But again, it's going to cost money to maintain these helicopters. I don't know what it's going to cost annually, but it's probably going to be a significant amount. But yes, if we had that asset here, maybe one or two,
it would have stopped the fire.
Yeah, I mean,
we had.
That's the beauty about planting trees. The trees can serve as that buffer to slow down that fire, so we can have some kind of defensible space to fight these fires and give us time to respond. Because if it's just all grass, 500 acres can burn real quickly. Considering the topography and the wind direction and things like that, it'll go. So if you have strips of fire breaks there, it'll slow it down, and then this is where this asset. And again,
one thing that might be able to be accomplished is it seems we've got a very close working relationship with the military now, is to, if they have a policy change where instead of only bringing the helicopters out when houses or people or property are threatened, if they could be on call to go out and hit a couple of these fires right as they start, they wouldn't have to come out later to try and protect the houses. And so if that could be done, that could be a really that could be a great place to start and see if the viability of having a helicopter here would work.
I was going to say that all ideas should be put on the table. But in the meantime, maybe it just means asking the Navy to revisit their policy.
Yeah.
And so, based on this roundtable discussion, I'll write a letter to the Admiral asking her to, and making the argument that is a significant impact to the environment by not.
And to the Navy.
Yeah.
Because a whole bunch of what got burnt yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week, was Navy property. And they spent a lot of money to go in there, hired contractors to go in there and plant those trees, go back and fertilize them, and they worked. It stopped a lot of it, but it burned a lot of those trees too. And it burned probably, 300 or 400 acres of military land that had they stopped.
Protection of life and property.
And property.
That should be the motto.
Yeah.
I got it.
Director?
Yes, just to add on to Mr. Simpson's comment, it is very important because you do have areas where the fire starts and it's hard to access the area. So stoppage of that initial, instead of letting it build up due to no access to put it out. So that's a good point.
Thank you.
And I know that Mr. Mopnas had conversations with the National Guard regarding those helicopters. And the idea is maintenance and staffing it. But I wonder if we can do something outside the box to ask the Navy if they're interested in acquiring those helicopters free of charge to them, but in exchange for a public-private partnership. So if you can give me the details of that helicopter, we'll also put that in the letter to the Admiral.
Just ask her to start with if they could, if
Of course.
they got a call, could they go out and hit
policy
it right away?
change.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, advise her that there's an opportunity to acquire this property. I mean, the military is a superpower, but everybody's hurting for resources, and so maybe the Navy might be open to. So that's an excellent point and suggestion.
And I also want to add that I think that once you let people know, that they can get trees and they can get help with laying out where to plant them and things like that, that landowners out there will be happy to do that, especially when they see that it does stop fires. you'll lose a lot of trees, but it also, the more trees you have, the less the fires can go through there.
So you were here earlier when I asked a question of what do you think the private property owners will, how they would react to this kind of compelling them to participate in this kind of conservation program. They might be open to it, right? Because as you just pointed out, if they understand what this would do to protect their property, they won't see it as government going in to regulate their activity and their property that's, of course, consistent with that current land zone.
Yeah. I think that if they could maybe expand a little bit on what they did, like at what I call the Coastal area, Base 18, when my son was a Boy Scout, part of what they had to do as their public service was go out there and plant trees. So if you had private landowners that could just open it up, there's enough kids in school that need to do public service that they'd love to go plant trees. That'd be a fun thing to do. You can, once you plant a tree, you kind of want to follow it and see how it does. So it ties some of those back to that, and a program where you can get trees easy.
And some of that property must be DOD property, right?
Yeah, a lot of it is.
The one we're talking about?
On the Finna subwatershed. Probably more towards the Talofofo.
So do you know if they're doing any reforestation programs, or what is the military doing to prevent those properties from eroding?
I'm not sure about the...
Can we find out?
Okay.
Because
they do it for a different reason. They do it for mitigation. They have, in some place, they've done something wrong, or they've had to make up for, having to do something that they couldn't quantify. So they said, okay, so their mitigation is, we'll go plant trees. So they planted, paid to plant like Seti Bay and some other places. And I think that's what's around us. The only reason that they're planting there is because they kind of were told to as a mitigation measure. So I'm not sure they're volunteering to do it. They're being poked to go do it.
I'll add a statement to that. I think in 2000 they did approach NRCS, and we did write. I was just there on Naval Mag yesterday looking at some of the practices that were installed in 2005. And while Mr. Simpson is correct, there's a certain element of mitigation that they're responding to as a result of the build-up and over project activities where land is impacted. They are also willing conservation partners, and we've written conservation plans for them, and they work, and the practices work. So they're actively testing, along with Guam Forestry and Guam EPA, some of the science that USDA and RCS is recommending, and we've, over a period of a decade, come up with some adaptive management recommendations. The tree planting that Joe outlined in Manelgues and other practices that are quite effective, low-tech, cost-effective, and help address controlling stormwater and bringing that water back into the land instead of letting it run over it. So,
and also we can ask the Department of Interior if there's some technical assistance monies there. Biggest thing right now is climate change.
Correct.
And one of the ways to combat that is to plant more trees.
Yeah.
And so I was told that the only way to get the attention of the Secretary of the Interior is to talk about climate change. So
put it under climate change.
Yeah. So we'll also follow up with the Interior.
The reason I mentioned the school kids, my son is going to Notre Dame, and so he has to do a certain amount of public service, right? So it's hard for him to find it because every day he'll get off the bus there at again the shopping center, run over to Red Cross and ask them if they got anything he can do, and they don't have it. I could take him home and say, go plant 100 trees, and he could have credit for that, So I think there's room there that you can make it almost a fun thing to do.
No, and absolutely, we're open to whatever. I mean, I had discussion with different people as far as whether it's the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I talked with the regional leader there, I think Derek Cepeda, and our doors are always open. If they want to come out and look, come out and do your camping, get your Eagle Scout badge or what have you, and you know, pitch your tent there at the Cross Island Road. That way they can understand what's going on there, and that they could be our you know, voice to really support the work. But you know, it's there, and it's there for partners to come in and do what they need to do, you know, in support of that natural resource. And we're open to whatever ideas that are out there. We have programs that are available to the private landowners, likewise other government agencies, and it's just a matter of people taking advantage of that opportunity. So it's a work in progress. It's ongoing work that, you know, we continue to try and get out there.
So I'm hearing that you prefer to have a mandate that creates this partnership.
That's correct. Just to add on, because Mr. Simpson, you mentioned your son's part of like earning of credit for. We do right. We do have that planting, the R2R, the Rich to Reef. I think, Joe, we have it like twice a year, and we did invite high school students to come out. I think we just had one about 3 months ago, and it was down at Mosso area. So that's something that I guess with Notre Dame administrators can write a letter to agriculture for what
Just say, yeah, they can get plant 10 trees and get an hour's credit or something.
Right.
You know.
Because we do have that. I think it's twice a year. We have that the tree planting, and it all evolves to erosion control. The what do you call it? The Rich to Reef.
Well, I mean, that's the concept, you know. I mean, Rich to Reef, you know, it's demonstrated the slides there. You know, you start from the top all the way to the bottom. You know, marine and coastal resources. You know, if you don't stop the soil from coming, you know, flowing down, you know, you can do all the work that you can do down there, and those are a lot of good work that's happening down there. A lot of money that is being invested, but you know, if the soil, the sedimentation reach out there and smothers the coral, kills the coral, you know. So we need to approach it holistically and do that rich to reef concept, and so that way, you know, everybody benefits from that. So.
And I think the one I mentioned that we previously had was for the DOE. So if we can actually open this up for private schools,
that'd be good. Yeah. I'll have them write you a letter. That way you can come home and plant trees and get credit.
I believe, Senator, before you have a report from a site visit from Department of Parks and Recreation, State SIPO, and whenever there's a federal nexus where our financial assistance or technical assistance is involved, we're required to do Section 106 consultations. And this is an important letter and an important document here. And I just wanted to state for the record that, USDA, NRCS, whenever we engage with private landowners, it's important that we respect the cultural resources. There's a history, patina on the land that we need to preserve, and that we will work in close cooperation with local and other federal agencies to make sure that those resources are identified and respected and protected.
I wanted to ask one thing. You know, looking at these maps like this Bolanos conservation area, most of that area up there is government land, and a long time ago the military used to bulldoze a fire break that ran all the way from Inarahan Village to the Seti Bay Overlook, and the guys used to use it as a motorcycle track, an off-road track through there. I think if that was opened up again, and it could be opened up in such a way that it wouldn't cause erosion, you know, drains put in and berms and things like that, it would allow planting of trees, and it would allow access to the area that could be used for firefighters, could be used for planting, could be used for tourism, could be the views from up there are amazing. It's really something. So if that could be looked into, there's a lot of old roads, there's a lot of old bridges that are knocked down, but that road is still, I think, a legal right-of-way. And the fastest time, imagine this, the fastest time anybody ever had on a motorcycle was like 17 and a half minutes, starting at Seti Bay Overlook and ending up at the Inaran Fiesta. And so that's how open that road was. People used it actually to go home to Inaran as a shortcut. But it's gone. There's remnants of it there now. But if it was looked into to be opened up as just, a dirt access road, but, well designed so it would drain and wouldn't erode, it could be a big benefit to stopping fires in that area.
Good.
Okay. Neat place over there.
Senator?
Yes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the urgency of this situation. I know that people living down south, they could go by and look at Talofofo Bay. You could see the dirt filling in, building up in front of the rocks. People living in Inarohan and Maritzo, the Ugum River is their water source. Lately, when too much dirt washes down and stuff, they shut the water off. I've had my water shut off for over 5 days. The mayor always takes the water trucks and put it out, and they go around and announce, it's not drinkable water, but they give you potable water. So that's the effects that everybody sees down south. I want to talk about the effects that I feel. Starting with the river tour. It's been there for 26 years. Up to about 4 years ago, the erosion problem really started showing itself about 7 years ago. But about 4 years ago, it really started getting bad. The Ugum River has filled in with dirt. We can no longer take the boat up the Ugum River where we used to. It used to be beautiful. We'd go up the Ugum about a quarter mile, and we had this big wide area where we had the bamboo all around. Yeah. It was beautiful, it was tranquil. In the middle there, bubbles came up out of the river. That was the ground spring feeding the river. And, the tourists, we just show them, there's the bubbles, and it was all interesting, That all got filled in about 4 years ago. The boat can no longer access up there. The worst part about it is more dirt and more dirt is being washed down. And now for 4 years we haven't gone up there because of it. But that's because you need a certain amount of depth. Now it used to be where those bubbles used to come up, it used to be about 20 feet deep. It's 2 feet deep there now. And part of the effects of the river that I see is the river, the Ugum River, when you went up it used to be narrower, but it used to be deep. Well, now that it's all filled in with dirt, and you got a large volume of water coming down there, the water is now eating the bankments. And so, it's the Ugum River going up to a certain point, it follows the level of the ocean. When the tide goes up or goes down, the river goes up or goes down. But now that all that dirt's filled in there, and this is a perfect picture. Can you put this one up on the screen? Yeah, there. All that stuff sitting in the river just tells you it's shallow. It used to be 20 feet deep in there. Actually, I used to go up there and fish in there all the time. The water has no place to go when it comes down because the river's filled in with dirt and mud and silt. If you touch that stuff, you just sink right into it. So much has come down the river, and the problem starts way above us. It starts above the Flores family, and it's just filled in the whole river there. We used to kayak up through there all the time. Even getting kayaks through there is a little tough nowadays. The problem is the volume of dirt coming down. And the main problem's on the Ugum, but where the Ugum meets the Talofofo, it has started filling in the Talofofo there, and the Talofofo's starting to get shallow. So when the water came down the Ugum, it went right as it feeds into the Talofofo. When the river's really running fast, it shoots right out the Ugum and it hits the embankment of the Talofofo where the Duenas family has properties, and you can see where it's eroded away some coconut trees that have fallen down there lately. And then after that, it hits off that embankment, and then it comes back and hits our property again. So basically, I really see the Ugum River as the big problem, and the volume of dirt that's coming down it. It's made it so shallow that the water has nowhere to go but to hit the embankments and go up higher.
And that's why Bart mentioned new Dr. Shelton's project, the Hamatak project, and that whole how to soften the soil so you reduce the impact of the energies created by that water flow.
Right.
And you talked about it starting up there.
And the other owners of the confluence of those river systems. There's three major drainages: the Bubulo, the Ugum, and then the Talofofo. Some of the energy in the Talofofo is taken out as a result of the impoundment at Fennel Lake, the dam there. So there's a whole chunk of the upper end of the Talofofo drainage that's behind a dam. So there's energy dissipation as a result of that.
Yeah.
So, but the Bubulo and the Ugum upper end of the watersheds don't have any impoundments or dams or so it's a straight shot. So the lack of a sponge or a forest at that upper end of the watershed is allowing the water to shoot straight down. And we're seeing the impact of that. We've seen the changes at the Talofofo Bridge, the coral head that dropped out. The armoring of Talofofo Bay has changed the whole hydrology and energy of the river. More of that ocean, as Mr. Kloppenberg pointed out, that ocean, the river rises and falls with the tide. So sediments being dropped out sooner, and Joe made that mention, that you don't see that sediment accumulation in Talofofo Bay anymore. It's propagated further upstream. So we need to get either WARE experts or Army Corps hydrologists, and I believe, I don't know if Katie submitted her information. I think she sent it to the Southern Soil Water Conservation District, how Army Corps can be brought into the process to address or to look at our study. And that may be a vehicle that you want to explore. It's more complex than what NRCS normally addresses because it's a hydrology, just aware of the problem. If you treat it in one location, 100-foot stretch at the lower end, you're just propagating that problem upstream or downstream further. That's why we're working in partnership with EPA, Guam Forestry, Soil and Water Conservation Districts to address this more holistically because it's a complex problem. And we need to, certainly we need to address it.
Which speaks to Tom's point about
Correct.
the source of this problem.
I was going to ask, has anybody
Henry, could you
studied
just
what
talk into the mic?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Has anybody looked at what the Ugum water treatment plant has done to that? I mean, the Ugum water treatment plant is only maybe 300 yards upriver from this, and it's really slowed down that river. Before that was there, we could ride across it, but that was a fast-flowing part of the river, and I think it's stopped that fast flow that would flush out the sediments and let them move out and get out naturally. But I don't know. It just seems like that could be part of the problem.
I'm not a hydrologist, so I won't speak to that. But Ugum treatment plan has been in since the late 80s, and that's why we need those experts, either through Army Corps, or Department of Interior, or USGS, to come out and reevaluate what's going on, because there are major structural changes as a result of armoring in Talofofo Bay, and then you have the Ugum treatment facility. I'd have to go back to the EIS that was done for that and look at that and what they. But I don't have that in my head.
Just wondering, I think it's worth this study because it seems to have changed the dynamics of the river there.
I personally think it's the ocean, the changes in the Talofofo Bay and the armoring that are forcing that level back up further so the sediment drops out. Because the erosion pattern probably hasn't changed on the last 50 years.
You're right. It's climate change. It's
Yeah.
right.
So we're seeing that as
Global
Right.
warming.
that,
Yeah.
Salt water
pushing
going further back
That
up.
energy isn't getting out into the ocean. That's not the interface anymore. It's where the Kloppenbergs have their farm and ranch. So and we have to recognize too, as unfortunate this is. I mean, even the Mississippi River, it moves across the landscape.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and if you look at old pictures of where the Mississippi used to be, I mean, it used to, after a big earthquake, it flew north instead of south for a while. So there are some changes that, as unfortunate as they are, we just have to, we got to figure out a way to deal with it. I know that's not necessarily what you want to hear when you're.
No, I'm just wondering, you know, it makes you wonder what's going on.
And so our challenge is how do we develop a sustained, coordinated approach to solve this problem over time?
It's climate
And
change.
so,
Right,
oh
Climate
yeah,
change, you're right. Stay on climate,
Yeah.
get some money that way.
yeah. Okay. Anything else? Well, I think, go ahead, Brad.
I think I already
Right.
mentioned the cultural resource aspect.
Yeah.
This is an ancient landscape, both geologically speaking as well as for the Chamorro people. Each time I go into the watershed, I find something new in terms of a lusung or a pottery or something. So some focus in the study and how that gets done so that we can respect the landscape and make sure that we're implementing the necessary conservation practices, because some of them will require soil disturbance. And so we need that review done so that we know where these assets and resources are, the history, because that becomes a point then where we can educate ourselves about that whole valley, which is an important one in Guam's history. So I guess I'll close with that NRCS, our cultural resources specialists in Honolulu, will be working with the state SHPO office here to redo our programmatic agreement that will address how we deliver our conservation assistance on private lands and with partners. So we expect to have that training and that updated document out within the next 3 months.
Okay. So we just have to figure out how to encourage those private property owners to participate in the mitigation plan, but there's nothing that prevents the government of Guam from moving forward to continue with reforestation projects, and we'll ask the Navy to give us an update on what they plan to do. You have a closing,
Yeah,
Henry?
I'd give them a property tax break for planting trees out there, because they have huge amounts of property that can't really use. They have to pay a property tax on it.
Yeah.
If they're planting trees on it, give them a break on that for how many trees they plant, and I think you have a whole bunch of willing participants.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to provide some kind of
Incentive
incentive,
for 'em.
yeah. And then as Edwin talked about, we have to figure out the definition of those, to update the zoning for that, for those areas that are critical to preserving the coastal, right, management and, yeah. Okay, so, no, this has been very helpful, and it's not the last time we're gonna meet, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing. Chief, I know that and Director, I know that the resources are very limited, but if we somehow institutionalize this partnership, that you'll automatically have all these untapped resources at your disposal. It's very clear in my mind how that's going to happen. Okay, so if there's no other comments, thank all of you for your suggestions. Thank you again for the tour that we had. And this committee will stand adjourned until such time we have to reconvene. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.